And the first thing we have, we're going to pause the video really quickly because I'm using these as highlights that I export over to YouTube. So I'm going to try to get better about talking while these videos are playing so that the highlight is really good. So what we've got here is going to be a Mountainside Forest scented coconut milk soap. And just to give you an idea of what's going on in the scent blend for the Mountainside Forest, I think it's just, I really love this blend. So you've got the earthiness of oak moss and amber with just a hint of a really sweet lavender and sage to kind of really give it depth and a little bit of sweetness. And then topping it off, there's just a touch of orange and grapefruit and a bit of tonka. And tonka smells a little bit like vanilla. So you get this sort of acidic lift and then the smooth sweetness and the rounding out of the tonka there. It's just, Mountainside Forest really ultimately is, I think, a great way to describe it. It's a really wonderful, earthy, bright scent. So we start off, I'm pointing out there, that's my lye and water solution. And that's all it is, lye and water. And there is a little bit of sodium lactate in there that's basically salt, and that will harden up the bars a little bit so that they mold up really nicely and come out very smooth and uniform. And then in the big Pyrex there, or nope, the little tiny plastic guy, this is my coconut milk blend. So there's full fat coconut milk there. There's rice bran oil in there. There's a little bit of kaolin clay because the scent blend, the plant-based fragrance and essential oil blend is in there. And the kaolin clay helps those essential oils really get fixed in the base and make the soap actually smell good. It's actually notoriously difficult for to get scents to stick and really be just really strong in soaps, because of the heat that happens in the saponification process often breaks down scent molecules. So the kaolin clay helps that, and we stir that all together. That'll go in after we've started emulsifying and saponifying the soap. And then the final Pyrex there is my soap oil blend. So there's some palm in there, there's coconut oil in there, there's olive oil in there, and a couple of other things. And I'm going to be using this gorgeous sort of olive green shiny mica, and going to be making an activated charcoal swirl. Now you'll see the activated charcoal there, like as often as I can, as everything is plant-based. And if I can find something derived from coconut, I will use it. I love coconut as an ingredient in all of its forms. So even the charcoal here is derived from coconut. And the coconut swirl, the charcoal swirl will make this a little bit more absorbing of oils. So this is going to be a soap for an oilier skin. And so it'll help clean a little bit better. It's derived from coconut. And this is the tool that we're going to be using to create the swirl effect in the soap. So there, everything is all gathered together. We're going to start by putting our mica into the soap oils before we add the lye, because we want to blend that color, that mica color in there, into the oils really, really well before we add anything else to the mix. And you'll see it's really going to totally change the color of the oil really quickly with the stick blender there. And of course, as we add the rest of the ingredients, that color will get a little bit paler. Just as in any other kind of pigment mixing, you know, when you add a pigment with white, you kind of make it a little bit more pastel. And the emulsification process as well gives it a creamy color. If I didn't add the micas, the soap by itself would just be like a creamy off-white. And here we are giving our lye solution one last stir. We're going to be hand stirring, or no, we've got the emulsion blender on low as we slowly pour in our lye solution. And you can already see that emulsification is beginning and the color is changing, even at this early stage. So saponification has begun, and this will heat up. It'll get close to 300 degrees, and that's good. You know, that lets us know that the chemical reaction is happening, and we're going to want to slow the cooling down at a later stage to make sure that the soap is opaque. And now we're going to add our final fats and our aroma blend in. And again, we're going to do that relatively slowly. We've got the stick blender on very low. We're even hand stirring a bit. And the sort of the batter, the soap batter, is already beginning to thicken. We're going to want to bring it to what's called a light trace. Trace is the point at which you could pull a tool out and kind of leave drips, and you can still see the shape of those drips. It begins to start to set up a little bit like custard. And the more you stir and the longer you wait, the thicker the trace gets. So if I wanted to really shape the top of this loaf more, then I would want a thicker trace. But because I want the swirl to happen and I'm going to add some charcoal, I want to keep this at light trace. I don't want to stir too much more. We're just about where I want it because I want to be able to work with it to make the swirls. And see how well coated the immersion blender is there. We've definitely got the light trace that we want. You can see just a little bit, a hint of the drops on the top there, the shape of them still. And that's exactly where we want this to be. So the next step, we're going to add the charcoal directly to the batter as we pour. And I've got my favorite silicone spatula there to help me keep things moving. Readjusting the camera a little bit to focus on the soap. We're going to pour a little bit of the soap batter without any colorant first, so that we've got a good solid layer of this olive colored soap on the bottom. There we go, just a little bit, just one little layer, and clean up our pour spout there. Now we add the first bit of charcoal right on top of the batter that's there. We'll mix it a little bit to get it started incorporating, but we don't want to mix too much because we want it to create a swirl. You'll see. We're going to kind of just dampen the charcoal there and make it pourable. And so we've got a very dark, very black bit that we're going to pour out there. We're going to pour that right into the center, and we're going to be using that to make our swirl. Just back and forth into the center, and it'll sink a bit. That's fine, that's what we want. The swirl soaps, because of the way that you do them, are always completely unique. And see, we've run out of our charcoal there, so we're going to do another bit. You never get the same pattern twice. Every single one will be a little effervescent work of art when it's done. It'll have this gorgeous dark marbled pattern, and you'll get to see that in the next video where I cut this soap. So we're just doing the same thing again, adding that charcoal swirl there, and pouring that back and forth right into the center. And we've got a really nice sort of wavy bit of the charcoal soap still on the top, adding a little bit more of the olive colored soap to the top there, and you can see it's really looking dramatic already, and we haven't even gotten the swirl tool out. It's one of the reasons why I do kind of love making the swirl soaps. They're a lot of fun. And they always come out so pretty. As always, we want to clean up our workspace, clean up our mold before we move to the next step. We don't want to, accidentally dip our finger in a puddle or something and touch our eye or, make a mess. We're going to tap out any bubbles, leveling that soap out, and now it's time for the swirl tool, and we're just making sort of figure eights. We're going all the way to the bottom and then figure eighting our way through the soap, going back and forth. And this is making swirls in the middle of the soap. Go all the way from one side to the other, and then we'll go in the other direction doing basically the same thing. Some more loops as we go up through the soap so our swirls move in multiple directions. And this is already really pretty. I'm just going to wipe that off. I'm sure I use a paper towel on the glove. And then I just grab the paper towel itself. Always clean the mold. The soap will act like glue if you don't get it off, and it'll hold the lid on. You end up having to cut the soap out. You don't want to do that. And I think here for a minute about leaving the top of the swirl as it is, and then I decide to go ahead and get a little purple spatula and kind of clean that swirl up a little bit. And I'm glad I did, because I think this ends up looking a lot prettier. I have since misplaced this little spatula, and I'm very sad about it. I do have a replacement, but it's not quite the same. And there we go. Now we've cleaned up that top swirl. I think that is looking gorgeous. I'm going to tap it down and level it out one more time. We're going to spray some alcohol on top of it here in a moment, but I just want to show off that beautiful shiny swirl. Look at that. Looks good enough to eat. Do not eat the soap. Do not eat the soap. You'd regret it. And here we go, spraying that with alcohol to inhibit the formation of soap ash, which just kind of messes up the look of it. It doesn't really affect the quality or anything, but, we don't want it. So we spray it. We put the lid on, and there you have it. We have made a Mountainside Forest scented coconut milk soap with an activated charcoal swirl. And moving on, so what we do now, once we've got it all poured and covered up there, I'm going to stick this off screen into an oven that is at about 150 degrees, because what I want, remember I mentioned earlier that the saponification raises the temperature of the soap. It can get up to about 300. What we want to happen now is for that to cool off very slowly. So I'm going to put that in a 150 degree oven, very, very, very low. It's going to stay cooking at 150 for about 15 minutes. Then I turn it off, but I don't open the oven for another 24 hours. And the silicone mold and the wood mold with the lid and the doors of the oven all keep that heat in, and this doesn't completely cool off for about 24 hours, and then I unmold it. Then I let the unmolded soap cure and lose some water weight for about 24 more hours, and then it's time to cut it. So I pull out my very cool soap cutter here with the guitar string wires. And I'm pretty sure I may be cutting 2 loaves of soap. Yes. So I made another loaf of soap at the same time, and I cut that one. This is my Breathe Easy soap, and it smells really good. There's camphor and eucalyptus and all sorts of soaps that are scents that are good for your respiratory system. And you just pull those wires down and through the soap, which is still quite soft, soft enough to be cut with a wire, much like cheese. You pull that all the way through, and you've got some beautiful uniform soap bars with 1 chunk left on the end. This makes 10 soaps and a very thin little tester. All looking very nice and uniform there. I do love cutting the soap. Still a little rough around the edges. We'll bevel those in the next step after they've cured up a bit more. Now the individual bars will cure up, depending on the humidity, anywhere from a couple of days to a week. And then I will trim them down and prepare them for packaging. Then we're just going to take the end of that soap and put it right back in there and cut the last 2 bars and the little tester. Every single loaf of soap I make, I get a tester, and every soap is tested for lather and scent and all of those good things. And of course, I get to keep all of the testers. So I have a ton of my soaps. I love my soaps. I started out making all of these things basically for me and my friends and my family. So I use all of my products, and I really love them. So that was the first soap cut, and we're going to clean up the wires and the little base there before we get to our swirl soap cut, and you're going to get to see how that charcoal swirl turns out in these soaps. I think you're really going to like it. They end up looking so pretty, in my opinion. And again, every single one is unique. You never get the same pattern twice. You don't even get the same pattern throughout the entire loaf of soap. They vary with every bar. And as always, keeping everything clean. The paper towel has isopropyl alcohol, cleaning and sanitizing everything. And here's the unmolded soap. You can see that swirl. It probably looks familiar. You can see how smooth the sides are. And the procedure is the same. We're going to line that up in the cutter. And we're going to very slowly, with an even pressure, push those wires through the soap loaf. And for the first cut, we make the first 8 bars. And there you can see it goes all the way through. And that'll be the last 2 bars in the tester. And you can see some of the swirl beginning to happen there. We get some really dramatic swirling more towards the middle. You can see I love the marbling effect that happens with the activated charcoal. And you know, I know when I poured the charcoal powder in, you know, it looks like, oh, that's going to be really thick. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? But it really comes out sort of thin and spidery, and to me it looks like slabs of marble. I particularly like that one. I think that one's really nice. I actually still have 5 of these in stock. So if anybody is interested, they would go out pretty quickly. That one's gorgeous too. And there's that last little bit of the loaf to cut. So second verse, same as the first, line it up and cut the last 2 bars in my little tester. The tester cures up more quickly than the thicker bars so that I can test them before they're really truly done. Look at that. Gorgeous swirls. Really cool patterns going on in there. Looking great. And there's my little tester. So I can make sure that every single soap bar and soap loaf is of the best quality.